dreaming the seeds and the whispers of Imbolc. It's really hard to believe that we are now sitting already at the end of January. It's really hard to believe that, isn't it? This last month has moved so fast. And have you noticed the days are so much longer? You know, you think back to October, the end of October at Samhain. You know, the day went just from day to night, very quick, very suddenly. You know, the day dropped away and night arrived. Whereas, you know, now we've got this twilight returning back into the world. You've got this kind of transition from day into night. You know, this kind of gentle transition, and you've got this kind of in between happening again. You know, the liminal, the crack between the worlds is beginning to return. And you know, it's gone 5 o'clock before it gets dark now, which is really, really beautiful. So, you know, dreaming the seeds and the whispers of Imbolc. For me, you know, when you kind of look at the wheel of the year, you know, I think over the last few years I've had a deeper understanding and deeper connection to the wheel of the year, and most definitely to Imbolc. And I think that, you know, some of that deeper understanding, that deeper appreciation has also come from a deeper understanding of my ancestry, deeper understanding of my mum's people. You know, and I'm on this journey of, you know, really understanding inherited trauma, ancestral healing. You know, I follow the wheel of the year, have done for many years. But, you know, these things just become richer and richer. You kind of go underneath the layers and underneath the layers, and somehow they become more simpler. They become more, I think, more richer from that simplicity. And, you know, really connecting to the core and to the roots of things, you know, which is a very important part of the work that I do, is to go in and to go in deep and to get to the root, to the core. It's a big part of the work that I do within the consulting, and I think that then becomes an expression of everything you do, or you become the expression of everything. And you know, it's this kind of collaboration, this partnership between you and, you know, the world around you, that you are immersed into the fabric of it. And I think that's the thing for me, you know, having a deeper connection to these moments in time. You know, I don't even see them as a day. I see them as you know, a part of the season. I think our ancestors would have seen it that way as well, although of course we do mark certain days like summer solstice, winter solstice. And you'll find that, you know, within the description of this video, you'll find a link to the podcast, and we're going to really kind of have a deeper conversation into the fabric of these things. But I think, you know, for me, Imbolc having a really deep place in my heart has come from understanding my ancestry, understanding the deeper thread of that, and my mum's people. I mean, my dear granddad, Patrick Burns, or Paddy Burns as he was known, you know, being born 5 minutes from St James's Gate, and you know, Imbolc having a deep connection to St Brigid. And, you know, for me, for the last 9-10 years, having a wall hanging of St Brigid up on my wall in the centre of this beautiful, humble home of mine that's full of just amazing magical things, and so much of it being kind of created and crafted and gifted. And this wall hanging was one of the first things that I placed within this home. And it's like, you know, St Brigid. Brigid is known as, she's known as mistress of the keeper of the hearth, the home, and the flame. And she was one of the first things that I hung when I arrived into this space and made it my home. Was I hung her, and she's full size wall hanging, and I hung her on the wall, and she's watching over the core living space. And I kind of didn't really appreciate what I appreciate now through years that have gone by, decades gone by, and kind of understanding that deeper thread of wisdom, what she really represents. And she is the keeper of the hearth, the home, and the flame. And I think we're living in a time where we are in a cycle of return, and we are moving from harm to healing. However, as you'll see if you hop onto the podcast, there's other things that are stirring right now, which I felt would stir after this global event we've just lived through. It was going to be this sense of what was going to follow. And I really kind of, explore that, and we kind of go into that, and we dive deep into that within the podcast. But there was this kind of really deep appreciation over this last couple years, this last year especially, to what really kind of Imbolc represents for me. And when I talk about dreaming the seeds and the whispers of Imbolc, there's this feeling of it is this sense of stirring, and you're still kind of dreaming from winter solstice and Samhain, and we're dreaming the seeds. So now, as the maiden form of the goddess whispers to us of hope and new beginnings at the festival of Imbolc, it is on a cold February morning that you are invited to step on the wheel of the year. And if you're kind of not very sure what the wheel of the year is I really kind of invite you to jump onto the podcast and go and explore that. And as I say, I think my deeper appreciation has come from really understanding the threads of my ancestry, and going on this mentoring journey with an amazing, incredible teacher that, funnily enough, her name is Bridget. I have a few Bridgets in my world. Those things are never by chance, and they are, they seem to be by design in the most uncanny way. Really kind of understanding what our stories are about, our ancestral stories, our kind of inherited stories, the goodness as well as those difficult, challenging traumas maybe. There's great medicine stories in there. And when I kind of look back and I think about one of my early spirit guide portraits, and the more I've kind of sat and looked at her and kind of watched her and felt her energy around me, I really do believe that it was a manifestation of Bridget, of St Brigid, and that's the thing, my mum's people coming from Ireland, and then I had always been drawn towards this deity. Whenever I saw pictures of her, it always kind of jumped out at me, and always kind of really deeply connected. And then I was gifted this most incredible first portrait in 2011. So there you go. Okay, that's 12 years ago. This first portrait, I now look at this and know exactly who this is. She's been hiding in plain sight all this time. And look at the oak brooch there on her cloak. And there is this incredible story that I found a year ago around St Brigid, who was she was a mystical seer, visionary healer who wandered the land, was working within an order, but at the same time she was very solitary, and she would wander the land early in the mornings. And there's this incredible story of this oak tree that got struck by lightning, and her taking the embers from that oak tree into a small abandoned building that then she placed in the fire, and she then built this fire and then created this hearth, and thereafter the fire was always alight and watched over, you know. So when we say that she's the keeper of the hearth and the home and the flame, you know, it absolutely makes sense. But you know, Sheila Rose, who painted this in 2011, you know, wove this oak leaf brooch in, and just before that I ended up in a charity shop, felt her presence, ended up in a charity shop, and there was this tiny little oak leaf brooch. You know, these things are incredible. They're incredible stories. They're really, really incredible stories. And look at those green eyes and that red hair and that green cloak. That was the first portrait that was gifted to me. And then in 2019 we had felt this change in the way that this wonderful kind of guide was presenting herself. And you know, I was going through quite a transition. I was understanding the mechanics of magic naturally. It was more like I was having deep remembrance. It wasn't like, you know, it was learned. It was felt as if it was a deep remembrance. And at the time I'd had a trip up to see a really good friend of mine, and he's an energy healer, works with crystals. Many of you may know of him, a very close friend of mine, Matt from Golden Glow Healing. And you know, he'd done some work with me around crystals, and there was this energy that felt like it was being unlocked, unbound, and then all this kind of energy shifted, and then below me we'd felt this shift, and Sheila had woven together this beautiful portrait of again, we did, you know, I didn't quite know her name. I was grasping at a few kind of connections, and then it was this sense of deep realization that it was absolutely obvious who this was, especially when I found the story, which only a year ago, around the oak tree and the lightning. You know, the clues are all there, but that's the beautiful thing for myself. And then of course Sheila, you know, it was all very innocent and not knowing, but she was hiding in plain sight, which is, you know, the innate sense of humour, its spirit sense of humour. So, you know, she has deep connections to Imbolc, and you know, she, without a doubt for me, you know, is the keeper of the hearth, the home and the flame. Very mystical, you know, wandered the land, you know, kind of resides around springs and wells. You know, there's this magic afoot. So, you know, I'm going to read this to you. We're going to kind of close up the video as well. These videos are always going to be a lot shorter. We're going to close up the video. Deeper threads, deeper conversation. Links will be in the description, and also links to Sheila and her work, to Matt, and also my dear friend Elaine as well. Because around me, I was saying, there's just, this house is just full of gifted, crafted, made beautiful magical items, and so many of those things have been made by my dear friend Elaine. So we're literally surrounded by magic. So I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to close this out. This was a channeled message around about 2019. So, what stories of hope live within us? What stories of hope can we share around our Imbolc fires? around our Imbolc Hearth. Hope can be a powerful force. Maybe there's no actual magic in it, but when you know what you hope for most and you hold it like a light within you, you can make things happen almost like magic. Light candles and fires often. Not only will you find me in the flames, when you choose to look, you will find a spark within yourself. That was an inspired message from Brigid in 2019, and it's funny enough because that is when this portrait come to me. There is that inner light there, that light, holding that light. You know, so many people now, you know, are heralding the spring, and I say, shh. We are still dreaming those seeds. You know, for me, towards the end of January, and we're nearly there now, you know, I'm feeling Brigid this year come to me as the shepherdess. So as we, you know, approach the end of January, the start of February, I feel the call to kind of wander the wintry landscape out there, and gather a little fleece from the hedgerows, and spin it by candlelight into soft yarn using gypsy form spindles. You know, again, this feels like deep remembrance, and maybe it's the ancestry flowing through the veins as well. So to spin that yarn using gypsy form spindles, which will then be woven into yarn that we can use on when we craft our wishing scarves later in the year, that we then gift to close friends at Yule. So much more that I will be sharing in that podcast. This video is a little bit longer than I first thought, but as always, it is a heartfelt pleasure. Links will be in the description of this video, and wishing you all a blessed Imbolc.